Hey YouTube, it's Michael Gallacher, the Media Preacher, and I'm back with part 2 of my trying to record to a Tascam 424 tape machine feature. If you didn't see the last video, please check it out in the description below. But effectively, in that video, I dusted off my old Tascam tape machine. I loaded a tape into it, and I tried to record a track in the way I would have recorded a track when I first had this machine. The results were somewhat mixed. Problems with it were I had limited microphones to use, so I was using dynamic microphones, one of them a good quality one and the other not so much so, which had quite a detrimental effect I think on the sound of the guitar, listening back to the recording. And I also had no chrome tape to use because the chrome tape I had sort of messed up on me, and I ended up having to use a normal tape which I thought it produced quite a lot of tape hiss. And I've been listening back to the tracks when I mixed them, and I realised that the track that had the good dynamic microphone, the vocal track, didn't have very much hiss on it at all, but the guitar track was almost unusable. And I think perhaps that the microphone I was using needed so much gain on the preamp that I was getting a lot of extra noise from that. I also don't think that the guitar was particularly well recorded in terms of the microphone placement. I probably should have spent a lot more time getting the tone of the guitar right. And I don't know, it sounds slightly out of tune when I listened to it back. I don't know if that was the cassette, because when I heard the version from the recording on my microphone, my lapel mic, the guitar sounds perfectly in tune. So something seems to have happened between the tape and the reproduction of the sound, but the guitar was just not right. The track that I produced at the end of the video, as I say, wasn't the best quality track in the world, but it was probably akin to the sort of thing I would have produced in 1997 with a machine similar to this. Because, you know, it's pretty basic. It was a guitar and a vocal. I put some shakers on and some keys. Back in the day, I probably wouldn't have done the keys and the shakers. I would have done probably two panned acoustic guitars to get some width in the guitars, and then maybe two vocals. And those things would have been sort of mirroring each other. And that was my idea of an arrangement way back when, because I didn't really understand how music was properly arranged. So I was just sort of repeating what I'd already done because I had 4 tracks. I'm going to fill 4 tracks up. But yeah, and it was also limited by the mix, as I said in the video as well. The mix was very just, you put the fader into a certain position, you might roll off some lows, take out some mids, roll on a little bit of high EQ, but very basic mixing was involved. And that's also very limiting because I'm not using proper equalization, I'm not using proper compression, I'm not using proper reverbs. Another problem with it, and looking back at the recording, was I used the guitar reverb into the mic, and when I listened back to that, at the time it sounded really good in the headphones, but when I listened back to the tape there was too much reverb on the vocal. It sounded miles away, it sounded almost drowned. That wasn't the effect I was trying to achieve, and as I say, I printed that reverb onto the tape, so in the mix there was no way to sort of get rid of it. So what I'm going to try and do in this video is I'm going to try and take that basic recording and make a much, much better recording, still using the Tascam machine. So I'm still going to record everything to tape. And the reason I think there's hope for this is because the vocal track actually sounded really good. On its own, there wasn't too much hiss. It sounded really thick, and it had that tape warmth to it. It was ruined by some of the other tracks that were on the tape. And it was ruined by the limitations of the machine in the mix. So what I'm going to try and do today is I'm going to re-record some of the tracks. So I've already started, and what I've done is, because I recorded that original track to a click track, it's perfectly in time. So I sent the mix down that I put into the last video to a guy on a website called Fiverr, a drummer called Emiliano. Emiliano is a fantastic drummer. He is very, very reasonably priced. And he will do you a drum track which he will mix down and put into your track, or give you a separate track to use yourself with your own tracks. He'll give you the stems from his drums if you want them. He'll record a video for you. There's additional cost to each of these things, but he's a great session musician and I highly recommend him. And I used him on this track, and I've used him on all of the tracks that I'm going to try and record for my EP. So I'm going to leave a link to his Fiverr website in the description, and if you're impressed with what you hear in terms of his drumming on the final product, then, you know, please, if you're looking for a drummer yourself, look him up. You could do an awful lot worse. He's a fantastic musician and produces really good quality results in a very short time frame as well, and he's very reasonably priced. So Emiliano, thank you for your help with this. What I've done is I've sent Emiliano the original track, and he has then put drums to the original track. So he's played drums to the original track. And the original track, of course, is in time. It's got the verse, the chorus, the bridge, the verse, the chorus, the bridge. So it's all there. The structure of it's there. And what I've done is I've put Emiliano's drum track now that he sent me onto track 3, of this tape. I've also going to use, I think, the original vocal track that I had, but as like a backing vocal track. As I say, in the olden days, I probably would have like done 2 vocal tracks and panned them. So for this recording, as a nod to that, I'm going to have 2 vocal tracks on the recording. So I'm going to keep that track because it's quite well recorded, save for the reverb, but if it's back in the mix and it's sort of a backing vocal, that can only be, I think, be a good thing. I'm going to then re-record the acoustic guitar to Emiliano's drums. I'm also going to re-record the piano to Emiliano's drums and vocal. And the other main difference between the recording I'm going to do now and the recording I did last week is I'm going to use a ribbon microphone, and I'm going to send that output into this tape machine. So the vocals, the main vocal, will now be recorded with a good ribbon microphone. I'm going to record the acoustic guitar also with that microphone. And I'm going to make sure that I don't push these preamps too hard so that I'm getting good signal to noise ratio on the tape. When I have then filled up tracks 1 and 2, I am going to export those tracks into Pro Tools on my computer. And I'm then going to come back, because the drum track's still on this, of course, and I'm then going to play a new piano and vocal part again onto tracks 1 and 2. And I'm then going to export that into Pro Tools, which will then free up track 1 and 2 again. And I'm going to record, I think, some Fender Rhodes piano onto track 1 and 2 in stereo. And I'm then going to bounce that Fender Rhodes track into Pro Tools. I'm then going to do the same with electric guitar. I'm going to use my old Vox amplifier here, which I'm going to mic up again with the ribbon microphone to try and maintain the quality of the recording. And I'm also going to record a bass part, and I'm going to record all of these parts onto tape using my drum track and my original sort of scratch track, I guess, that I created last time as a guide to where I am in the song. So wish me luck. Okay guys, well I'm back. That was quite a long session of recording. I've put everything back, I've put the room back because I've literally ripped the room apart. I've had the guitar here, the amps there, I've moved the chairs, the digital piano has gone up against the wall, so I've got some room to actually play and feel like I'm creating. So I've recorded all the tracks now, and I've taken the output on the Tascam. It's got like a line output for each track on the back of the Tascam, and I put the line output into my inputs on my computer and played them in real time into the computer, and I've lined them all up so they're all perfectly in time with each other. So I now have an analog recording effectively, save for of course Emiliano's drums, which were recorded by him digitally. So I've got a bit of a hybrid recording, but even so, most of the recording has now been done in the analog realm. And I also thought, while I was doing this, I thought I can't be recording to tape and not record some like backwards tape to use with my mix. So what I've just done, the last thing I've done, is at the end of the tape here, I have just recorded some acoustic guitar parts. One of the opening chords of the song is C major 7. So I recorded this E minor thing, like this E minor lick, and then I finished on C major 7. And the idea is that I'm then going to turn the tape, and I've recorded that into track 1. So I'm then going to turn the tape round, and that should then play backwards on track 4. So here's what I've actually recorded. Don't know how well you can hear that, so do it again. That's what I played. So that's the actual guitar part. One more time. So that's what I've actually played. I then turn the tape around. So the tape is recorded onto that side of the tape. I'm now going to turn the tape backwards. What was on track 1 is now on track 4. So I'm going to put track 4 into play mode. And hopefully this is going to sound like backwards guitar, because it is. Here we go. So that ends on the C major chord. So what I want to do is use that as like an intro to go whoop into the first chord. So the chord that's playing backwards is C major 7. The chord I'm playing forwards at the start of the song is C major 7. So I want that to go whoop. And I want to use that, basically that tape loop. I'm going to put that into the machine. Again, I'm going to import that tape loop backwards into Pro Tools. And then in Pro Tools, I'm going to mix that tape loop into the mix. I'm not sure where yet. I'll see where it fits. My idea at the minute is to use it as like an intro. So it goes whoop, and then the song starts. And then maybe to use it as an outro also, which would be kind of cool. So, but I can't be recording onto tape and not make a tape part that goes backwards and stick it into my recording somehow. So I'm really, really excited about that. So anyway, yeah, I've used the ribbon mics. I'm really happy actually with the standard that's come off the tape. It sounds, I think it sounds really, really good, even from the, I'll just rewind it to sort of give you an idea of some of the tracks. Here's the guitar part. It sounds really good. I mean, I'm not getting too much tape hiss there at all. And you're just hearing this through my lapel mic at the moment. But I think that sounds really, really nice. So if I just rewind a bit more, to give you an idea of how it's sounding. So this is the Fender Rhodes part here. And there's an acoustic guitar there as well on track 4 at the moment. But there's very little tape hiss actually on that. I'm using the Dolby noise reduction, and I've made sure that my preamps aren't pushed too hard. And with the acoustic guitar, I used the ribbon mic, and I spent quite a lot of time miking the guitar to get a good tone from the guitar. That's Emilio's drum track that I played along to. And you can hear that the vocal's also on that track. I think that's probably the original vocal on that track, because that's my guide, basically. But no, I am really, really happy. I mean, all of the parts with the ribbon mic, not pushing the preamps too hard and keeping the signal-to-noise ratio quite high, have come out really beautifully. I mean, if you told me that these have been recorded digitally, I probably wouldn't argue with that. Except, of course, they've got the beauty of having that nice warm tape sound to them as well, which I think adds something to the recording quite a lot, especially with the electric guitar part, which I've now wiped on the actual tape. It's gone into the computer, so I've only got the acoustic and the Rhodes left. The thing, I mean, it's very limiting, the 4-track tape machine. 4 tracks isn't many tracks at all to be working with. Certainly when you're using, you know, maybe 1 or 2 tracks as a guide track. So in my original recording, I had the click as one of the tracks. With these recordings, I've had Emiliano's drums as one of the tracks to actually record onto. So quite limiting, really, in terms of 4 tracks. And quite a lot of work to record them and then to go over to the computer and hook the Tascam up to the computer, export them all into the computer to come back, wipe what you've done, and then re-record on the 2 or 3 tracks that you've got. But as I say, actually, the results, although it's been quite time consuming, so far they sound really good. And now if I can go over to the computer and mix them properly using proper equalization and compression and proper reverbs, I think that the track will hopefully stand up to the tracks that I've recorded for my EP. And if it does, then it can be included on the EP. And ultimately, if it just doesn't stack up, then it can't. But I've really got high hopes for this now, after spending perhaps more time on the tracks and understanding how the tape machine works a bit better on a second pass at it. So I'm going to now go over and mix the track in my Pro Tools session, just to show you briefly what I've done, and then I'll send you a link to the track. So I've come over to Pro Tools, and as you can see from the computer screen, I have uploaded all of the tracks that were recorded into the Tascam into a Pro Tools session. So they're now in the digital realm. I've sort of grouped them together, so we've got keys here, we've got bass parts here, drum parts here, and then vocals over here. I haven't used a huge amount of processing on any of the parts, but I have used far more advanced mixing techniques. So for instance, taking the bass guitar that I recorded, this is the original bass part that came from the tape. I added some EQ to that bass part. I pull that up, and in this part of the EQ I've effectively taken out all of the high frequencies. I've then added some stacked compressors onto the bass part so that I can get real control over that bass guitar. I then duplicated the bass track. I did much the same thing. I used an EQ. I've taken out all, if it'll load, of the low frequencies, and there's a little dip here. It was a frequency I didn't like, around 500 hertz, so I've taken that out, and then I've used again stacked compressors to control that. I then duplicated that track again, and this time added some Sansamp, and I've mixed all 3 parts together, which gives you the final bass part. Moving on to the drums, much the same thing again. Moving over to the vocal parts, the tape vocal here, again just some EQ on that, and then I've duplicated the track, and I've put a compressor onto one of the tracks here, put a compressor on, so we've got an uncompressed version of the vocal. I've mixed in a compressed version as well, so just a bit of parallel compression. And then we've got the backwards tape that runs throughout parts of the song. Do you remember I showed you that back in the shed? Then in orange, I've got my guitar parts, acoustic and electric guitar. Very little processing going on here. There's a compressor on one of them, and then just some EQs to control the frequencies. And then lots of the tracks have a send, which is just a basic reverb send to give the track some space. The send master is sort of over here. Then next to that, in this part of the track, I've got a Steely Dan track, so I can A/B effectively my mix against that mix, and I know that studio mix is a very good mix, and so I've sort of tried to copy where the bass is and where the guitar is and where the drums are in that. And then I've put a compressor and a limiter on the master output, and I intend then to mix it all down. So anyway, that is it. That's the analog recording in the digital world. That's how I'd use a Tascam tape machine nowadays. I've been reading, I mean, there were people apparently back in the 90s and in the early 2000s who were using these machines really inventively, because in the same way that I've just gone onto the computer, what they did is they would record, say, 3 tracks. They would put the 3 tracks then into their hi-fi VCR, which got exceptionally good. The hi-fi heads in the VCRs had exceptionally good sound quality. So they would bounce to the hi-fi part of the VCR, and then it would play back at almost the same quality, and they could free up, again, put the stuff from the VCR either onto tracks 3 and 4 or just track 4, and then re-record live onto 1, 2 and 3. And even while the tape was bouncing, maybe put some extra stuff onto the tape. So you really can push the machine to get a lot of tracks, and there are ways around using the limitation of 4 tracks and having lots and lots of tracks. But it's quite hard work, and it's much harder work than it is working in the digital realm when, you know, you've got just an unlimited track count. You can use unlimited compressors and reverbs and things like that. It's so much easier. But I think after mixing the track, there is definitely an extra level of warmth that's embedded into these tracks that simply wouldn't have been there had I recorded them in the digital realm in the first place. The fact that they have gone on to this tape tells me that the tape has added something to the recording that would not have been there otherwise. And it was worth doing the recording for that. And it was a lot of fun going back to the tape machine and using it again. So please, if you get a chance, check out the fully mixed track. I'm going to leave a link for it here in my description. So you can click on the link and go and find a copy of the finished recording. This, as I say, hybrid recording. The drums were recorded digitally by Emiliano, but everything else was recorded on the 4-track Tascam 424 Mark III tape machine. And I'm really, really happy with the results. And I am almost positive that this track is now going to be included in my upcoming EP, which I hope to have finished about September of 2021. So this is Michael Gallacher, the Media Preacher. Thanks for checking out the video. If you enjoyed it, please like it, please comment, and I'll try and comment back. I love getting into discussion. And please subscribe to the channel if you've enjoyed the content. It'll encourage me to do more videos. Take care. Bye-bye.